The Clippers were a team that many expected to take a step backwards this season, as they would be without two of their stars for the beginning of the season, as Paul George left in free agency and Kawhi Leonard would start the season out indefinitely. This left James Harden to take a big step up, but they still needed someone else to take that role of a 20-point per game guy. Little did they know, they already had that guy on the roster, and he had been improving into that role since he got traded to the team 2 years before. For many fans, Norman Powell was a name in the Sixth Man of the Year talks for the previous 2 seasons, but this year, we can look at how he has become the frontrunner for the most improved player in the league. Now, this offseason was a rough one for the Clippers, and their win total was at 35.5, and they were expected to fall out of that contending tier in the West that they had been in, but now, at just over halfway through the season, they sit in the 6th seed and are at 26 wins, just 10 under the preseason total with 37 games left to go as of this recording. The reason why, Norman Powell. The way this team was constructed the past 5 years, with the combo of Paul George and Kawhi, the two could just never get over that hump, and that is partially why Paul George left this offseason, looking for that championship that he couldn't get in LA, as he would go to Philadelphia. Kawhi would also be out for the beginning of this season, which left James Harden and the rest of this roster trying to keep the ship afloat until Kawhi would come back from that injury. With George gone, Sixth Man of the Year contender Norman Powell would be thrust into the starting lineup next to Harden, and this has been proven to be a deadly duo so far this season. Harden has been playing well this season, but we know his best years are behind him, but he can still pop out every once in a while and get those big games. Powell has led this team in points per game this year at just under 24 points, shooting 49% from the field and 43% from 3, putting him in the top 10 in three-point percentage this season in the league. Before this season, he proved that he could shoot deep because he was shooting 43% last year too, coming off of the bench, which led him to end up being 4th in Sixth Man of the Year voting. But as a spark plug last year, he only averaged 13.9 points per game. So this season, he went out there and he has improved his points per game total by 10 a game so far, showing an immense amount of growth. And let's take a look at how Powell even got to LA in the first place, if you didn't already know. So Powell was drafted in the 2nd round in 2015 to the Raptors and would end up improving every season, becoming a great piece for this team when they would win it all in 2019 with his current teammate Kawhi Leonard. He would end up getting traded in 2021 to the Blazers at the trade deadline, but would be on the team for less than a year before the Clippers would eye him. They would trade for Powell and Robert Covington and give up Eric Bledsoe, Keon Johnson, Justice Winslow, and a 2025 second-round pick. This would actually lead them to getting James Harden as well, as Covington would be in the package to get him. From day one, he would be a disruptor for the Clippers, as he would put up 21 points per game in the 5 games he would play in the season he got traded. After this, he would come in 4th in Sixth Man of the Year voting back-to-back seasons leading up until this year. He had proven that he could be a spark for the Clippers off the bench and found a role doing so, but with the loss of Paul George, he knew this past offseason would be a massive one for his development and a chance for him to get into that new role of a starting guard for this team alongside James Harden. One underrated part of his game this season has been his defense, which has helped this team tremendously. His 110.6 defensive rating at recording is good for top 30 of eligible starters in the league right now, and his teammate James Harden sits at 9th currently as well, making this backcourt very underrated and underappreciated in the defensive area. The team itself sits at 2nd in defensive rating, proving that they do have an elite level defense, which in hand has contributed to the success this season, and it starts in the backcourt with Powell and Harden. Powell has been a great player before this season, as we talked about before, but he really took that step up this season, which we have seen in previous years with players who win the Most Improved award. Starting off this year, he is 2nd in odds, right behind Cade Cunningham currently, and it gets pretty close depending on the day. Some days if one player has a better game, maybe it goes in their favor, but as of right now, it's still pretty close. It seems like every year we have the same argument amongst fans though, on which side it should go to. Cunningham has increased his points and production this season, leading the Pistons to being better. But some would argue he was already great last season, and his points per game only went up by 2.1, and his effective field goal percentage is almost identical, but he has taken a big leap as a passer, going up by almost 2 assists per game and grabbing almost 2 more boards per game. For Powell, though, the argument for him is that he has gone up by 10 points per game and increased his boards and assists by 1 each as well, but his shooting is almost identical and his effective field goal percentage still being very, very efficient. It seems like every season the finalists happen to be a top pick who has finally lived up to their true potential and gone from a great player to an elite player, and on the opposite side we see a player who may have been drafted later who went from a role type player to a great player, which we have the same exact predicament this year. We saw this most recently in 2022 when Ja Morant won over DeJounte Murray, and some people felt like it wasn't fair that Ja had won because his expectations to be great were already there after being drafted second overall. But either way, players should get the recognition for improving their play. As it stands right now, I would give this award to Norm for his ability he has shown to step up into a starting role and stay consistent, and I do think that Cade has shown great overall potential, and last year he was a very good player as well, and I do recognize that he has got better, but when we look at improving overall, Norman Powell has gone up 10 points per game and is still shooting very effectively. It's not like he just got thrown into that role and he's chucking up shots and the Clippers aren't good. They have gone from a team that was projected to only win 36 games this year and have completely soared over that and are going to make the playoffs as of this recording unless something crazy happens to this team. He has gone in there and played very efficiently overall, and he should get the recognition that he deserves this year. Since he's not going to be an all-star, since he's not going to make an all-NBA team, he still deserves some recognition at some point for how good he has been this year for the Clippers team. Now, maybe it won't come until the playoffs. Maybe they make the playoffs and he has a very, very good overall playoff, and maybe the Clippers make it to the second round, or who knows, maybe even the Western Conference Finals. I think that's a bit of a long shot, but I do think Norman Powell is one of the most underrated players in the NBA right now, and it's great to see him finally shine in a bigger role than what he had before. He was great when he was in Toronto, then going over to the Clippers, he showed promise in that first season, not getting to play as much, only a few games, but now finally coming in and getting thrust into that starting role, he has shown that he can be a great player in this league and has taken over that spot for Paul George that the Clippers were missing going into this season. And I was pretty low on the Clippers going into this season as well. I'm not even going to lie. So that's why I give this team and Norman Powell a lot of credit where credit is due this season, as he has been great, and the Clippers have really unlocked him as their X factor this season. Let me know down below what you guys think about the Clippers so far this year. Do you think they're going to be able to make a playoff run, or maybe do you think this is just a mirage and they may be one and done in the playoffs? Let me know down below, and also let me know who you think should win the Most Improved Player of the Year award as of right now. Obviously, we have a lot of season left to go, but if you had to pick one right now, let me know who it is, and I'll see you guys in the next one.